Hello everyone, the Kentucky Patriot here. We're so glad you stopped by. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this channel. We've just made some great friends and just really enjoy it. This is our hobby. This is a hobby to us. We love to shoot. We love the shooting sports, the NRA conventions, getting out in the woods and the great outdoors, and we just kind of bring our love of the sport and of guns and of the outdoors to this channel. And there's some other channels that we watch, because when I'm not able to shoot or get outside in the evening time when it gets dark after we put the kids to bed, that's what I usually do for a hobby. I'll watch YouTube videos and other channels because I enjoy, like I said, the guns and shooting and the sport. And there's a couple other channels that I've been watching here. Thor's Axe 777 and Loads of Bacon is his channel name. And Loads of Bacon, me and him's been talking back and forth. He does a lot of reloading, and that's something I'm really interested in. He said he'd help me along because, as you know, if you shoot very much, especially certain calibers like 454 Cazul, bullets are very expensive. So I'm going to maybe hopefully try to start doing some reloading, and he's been a big help, and I appreciate his channel and his kindness. And him and, like I said, Thor's Axe 777, they've been having, I think some others too, having what they call shooters chat with coffee. It's like coffee shooters chat, and I really like that idea. I thought that is really neat, and that's what I've always wanted this channel to be. And I hope nobody ever thinks that I'm condescending or talking down to anybody, because that's not it at all. We have our thoughts, we have our opinions, we have our likes and our dislikes, and we try to tell you what we like and why. But as I've said before, just because you don't carry the gun I carry, or the caliber I carry, or the style that I carry, I certainly don't think anybody's wrong or stupid, anything like that. We just like to kind of tell you why we do what we do, and try to dispel some myths. We do try to dispel things that we've heard that we don't think is true or don't think is accurate, whether at the range or in theory or whatever. I love the idea of just inviting you guys over and having just made a fresh cup of coffee here, and just kind of like a friend-to-friend neighbor visit, just sitting on the porch and sharing ideas. And I appreciate a lot of these comments that you guys are really just great and wonderful, and I appreciate it so much. But just kind of want to have a shooter's chat here. Just kind of my wife said, "What are you gonna make the video about tonight?" Because I asked her if she cared to film for me. I said, "Well, just kind of what's on top of my head." That's about all I do for a shooter's chat. But like I said, I love to talk caliber. I love to talk guns. I love to talk why we do what we do. But we got to understand that a lot of times when you ask people, they're telling you the truth. Okay, so it's kind of, this is a real kind of broad example, but I think it makes a very valid point. You can talk to and ask somebody, and it may be a dealer, it may be a car salesman, it may be somebody that likes the motorsports, and you can ask them what the best truck is, and they'll say it's a Chevy, and they'll give you all the reasons that it's a Chevy, and they're not lying to you. That's honestly what they believe, and they'll give you stats to back up what they believe. Then you ask somebody else with the same credentials, and they'll say, well, it's a Ford. And they'll give you all the reasons why Ford, and they'll tell you facts why Ford's the best. Well, somebody else will say Toyota. Well, somebody else will say Dodge. And when you hear all this, you think, well, they all can't be right, but realize it's kind of the same way in the gun industry. You can ask somebody behind the counter, you can ask a veteran, you can ask a competition shooter, you can ask a police officer, and you can ask a family member that does shooting or reloading or whatever, and get different answers. But just because somebody gives you different answers doesn't mean that the person before you that differed with them or after them are wrong or they're wrong. I think there's pros and cons to guns, home defense, concealed carry, holster, whatever it is. There's pros and cons, and you got to weigh that out. And just because somebody else likes something or it works well for them does not mean that it'll work well for you. And I used to get tickled with my grandpa. He was a revolver guy through and through, and he'd shoot a M&P or a Glock or whatever, and he'd shake his head and he'd say, "I don't know what anybody wants one of those guns," and just kind of laugh. But he never did have one. He never did have one. He was a revolver guy through and through. It's what he used for home defense. And he had shotguns and rifles, but he was a revolver guy when it comes for defense or carry, and he was you look at some of those old school law enforcement guys that had a revolver, that loves a revolver. Now you got to understand, there is facts, there's pros and cons. You're not going to get the capacity out of a revolver that you can with maybe a Glock or something. But you look at those guys that have defended their lives with it, or they've carried it in law enforcement years ago, or it's what they've always been around. I don't see how somebody can say, well, they're wrong for carrying a revolver. Revolver's a very good gun. It's very reliable. And then the same thing with like police officers in our state. They're issued Glocks, and you take somebody that's been trained and that's been an officer the last 15 years, and he's had to qualify with a Glock. His primary carries a Glock. His backup weapon's a Glock. So when he retires from the academy, probably what he's going to look at is, I've defended my life with it, I've protected others with it, I'm used to this Glock, I've concealed, and probably when he gets out, he's concealed it in his backup gun on duty. He's had his primary duty weapon. So for him to say, hey, I'm probably going to carry a Glock, even if that's not what somebody else carries, I don't see how somebody can say they're wrong. Or you take an old military man, old 1911 guy, that's been overseas, that's carried a 1911, that has depended his life on it, he had to qualify with, that's been his carry gun on his side, and that's what he chooses to carry. I don't see how, it's okay to say the pros and cons, and I like this, I don't like this, but we've got to realize, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is we're all on the same team at the end of the day, okay? So just because somebody don't necessarily choose the weapon or the gun or the holster that you do, doesn't mean that it's okay to, like I said, to have a friendly debate, but some people get upset or act like somebody's just off the wall or out of their head because they don't do what somebody else does. But just because somebody else carries a different weapon or a different holster or a different round than you do, and I think we need to know the pros and cons, just like a 22. If you use a 22, that's up to you, because people can argue, well, easy recoil, quick follow-up shots, and if that's the reason you pick the 22, that's fine. But you got to also understand that it's not going to have the foot-pounds of energy as a 500 Smith & Wesson does. But when you look at the 500 Smith & Wesson, you say, well, yeah, it's got a lot of velocity and a big bullet, but that's going to be tough to conceal carry. So basically, what I think is, I know a lot of you guys aren't new shooters. A lot of you guys have carried for years, you've shot for years, you know what you like. And I hope these videos either confirm what you do or it makes you think, because there's a lot of people over the years have changed their style of carry or changed their caliber or changed their weapon or may do different things depending on the season and their dress, where they're going, what activities they're going to be doing. And I think we can evolve as guns evolve, as holsters evolve, as we evolve. We may change jobs, we may change locations, we may move from a warm climate to a cold climate. And these are all just something to think about. But for those of you that are new or just kind of getting started to concealed carry or home defense, you hear so much out there. Really the best thing, my advice would be, is get as much information as you can. Because I'm telling you, I've been around this for long enough to know that whatever you do, somebody's going to say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. If you pick a 1911, somebody's going to say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. Or if you pick a Glock, even if you've been in the police for 20 years and retired, they'll say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. Or if you pick an M&P, they're going to say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. Or revolver, oh no, that's out. So people mean well, but the best thing to do is get with some people you trust, go to the range, try to shoot it yourself, try different calibers, different guns, get around some shooters, get around some people with gun advice, and even videos are a good source. If the good credible source to watch videos. I've learned a lot from videos, talking to people, from range people, from shooters, from military. And what you want to do is get a big broad base of facts and knowledge and information. Get as much as you can. Then when you get it all together, then you make an educated choice of what best fits you, with mode of carry, with shootability. How well can you shoot it? How well can you draw? And there's an old saying. It's kind of funny, but really there's a lot of truth to it. They say the only time you can ever have enough ammo is if you're on fire or drowning. And even though that's kind of funny, there is a lot of truth to that. But so nobody ever says, "Gee, I wish I had less ammo." But the truth is that I honestly believe, I think people overlook this. We talk about guns and calibers so much that I think people overlook I don't care what caliber you have or what gun you have, if you can't get to it and draw it and present it and be able to use it, then it's basically useless. So that is so important. We talk about capacity and capacity, but I believe with all my heart, and there's others I think I've heard say this that agree too, that the first shot is going to be so much more important than probably your 15th or 16th in a concealed carry type environment. So being able to get to that gun, I think, is so important. Having a holster and practicing. A lot of times people go to the range and they'll practice on their trigger, they'll practice on their sight picture, they'll practice on all these things, but a lot of times they forget about being able to get to the gun. And like I said, if you can't get to the gun, then it's absolutely useless. And it's the same thing as we've kind of mentioned in another video about the importance of consistent carry, having it on you and needing it, because you never know when you may be called upon to need it. And that's the thing. There has never been a time, nor will there ever be a time in history where there's a rapist going to attack a lady, or a mugger, or somebody going to commit a violent act or murder or whatever, that you can say, wait a minute. I'm a concealed carry holder, or I'm an NRA member. Let me go home, or let me go to my car and get my gun, and that's never going to happen. If it's not on you and it's not accessible to you, then it's basically useless. So that's just something to think about. And I'm going to probably throw kind of a monkey wrench in here, because I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, because we've got to understand that accuracy is extremely important. Because if you miss, whether you miss with a 22 or a 50 BMG, a miss is a miss. Now I know the percussion and the volume of the 50 BMG is going to be louder, but ultimately, as far as physically eliminating the threat or stopping the threat, a miss is always going to be a miss. So we understand accuracy, but I think we do have to have somewhat balance between accuracy, recoil, and power. And I understand, and I had a revolver one time that I did use for carry some, and it was a small, lightweight, short barrel 357 Magnum. And I kid you not, you could slip that in your pocket. It was extremely concealable. It was a very lightweight gun, and I don't remember the model of it, but it was a Taurus. And when you load that with 357 Magnum and you shot it, you would shoot it and it wasn't uncomfortable or kind of it was absolutely painful. It really was. And you shoot a couple rounds and boy, you sure knew you shot something. But what I would do there is I would kind of train a target, which I didn't carry it a lot, but sometimes I did carry a revolver. But you could load it with 38 and you could still feel it. But it wasn't near as devastating as a 357 Magnum. And on those short barrels, you got to watch, because you got to weigh out the difference. Is it really worth Magnum on those little tiny short barrels because of the recoil and because you're going to lose a lot of that when it comes out of a short barrel? That's something you work out yourself. But what I always done was I'd train with 38s, and then because it wasn't my everyday carry. If I was in the woods or something walking, and everybody does stuff different, but I don't like a big gun even in the woods. If I can go outside the waistband and carry a bigger gun, but still. Just me personally, I don't want to carry that 454 Casull when I'm hiking. I just don't. But to have a smaller gun, it's easier to carry. But if I was in the woods, I would. It was only a 5-shot. But if I was in the woods or something and I was going to carry that day, I would take it. Then I'd load a 357 Magnum if I was going to think I'd need it or whatever. Then a target shoot with a 38. Some people don't like to train with a round they wasn't going to defend their life with. But like I said, this wasn't my everyday carry. Just every now and then. But to make a long story short, the point I'm making is that would be a gun where recoil is totally going to be an issue, especially for a lady or somebody that's got arthritis issues. Because I'm a full-grown man, and I'm telling you, the recoil was violent. So follow-up shots was going to be tough. But that's something to think about and weigh out. And again, accuracy is important, but you got to kind of have a balance between accuracy and caliber. And I hope you know this channel by now, and hope you know that we would never make light of anybody or make fun of anybody. That we would never do that. But I was talking to a guy one time, and I really didn't know him, but he was talking to me, and I had an NRA hat on, so he seen I was a shooter, so he started talking to me. We started talking about guns and caliber, and he told me, he said, I carry it was 25 or 22 or 32. I think it was a 22. It was a real small pistol. And he said, they make fun of me at the range. And they say, oh, are you still carrying that little 25 or 22, whatever it was? And he said, and this is what the guy actually told me, and I'm not making this up or exaggerating, this is really what he told me. He said, I told him one time, he said, well, let me shoot you with it. And they said, huh? He said, let me shoot you with it. And they're like, we're not going to let you shoot us with it. He said, well, then see, if you don't want to be shot with it, that must mean it's a good defense weapon. And that was his school of thought. But like I said, I'm not making fun or poking fun or trying to make light of this, but I thought my little girl has got a pink camo BB gun in there. And we shoot pop cans with it. And I enjoy shooting a BB gun myself. And I think you can learn a lot as far as, aim and how to hold a gun and trigger and all that. So I'm not knocking a BB gun, but I would not want to be shot with that BB gun. There's no way I'd want to be shot with that BB gun. But just because I don't want to be shot with the BB gun, that doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily a great carry option. And again, there's people that carry a 22, and if you carry a 22, I've told you, I've carried that 22 Magnum North American Arms when my family goes to the beach. When we walk up and down the beach, you've got light clothing on, you don't want to carry a 1911 or 9mm or a 40 caliber or a Glock or a SIG. To have something at least with you in your pocket, it can be a great option. So I'm not trying to knock the 22, but what I'm saying is just because you don't want to be shot with something does not necessarily mean it's going to be a great defensive weapon. And just let me say this about accuracy and shot placement, because I've heard a lot of people say, and this again, I know there's great people on there and they have different opinions and schools of thought on this, but this is just mine. This is my coffee shooters chat, and see, you can tell I like to talk, and I like to talk so much I didn't have a drink of coffee yet, but people are so into accuracy and shot placement, you'll hear them say, well, really all that matters is shot placement. Really all that matters is shot placement. But I still believe with all my heart that caliber comes into it too. Real quick example, and I'm going to try to make this video too long. I'm going to try to close right here in a minute. But Nicky Scarfo ran the mob back in, I think it was around the 80s, maybe on into the 90s, but around the 80s in the Philadelphia mob. And you can watch documentaries on YouTube or whatever, but you know how, and they're in Atlantic City and in Philadelphia, and Nicky Scarfo was known to put out a lot of mob hits. And even with his own men, if he thought somebody was going to get too close or know too much or was going to squeal on him, that he would order the hit. Well, there was a guy that was actually in his faction there, and he had ordered a hit on one of his own men, because I can't remember what had happened. He thought he was going to maybe turn on him or whatever. And the guy was sitting in the kitchen, and one of his other guys who was in the mob with him was behind him and kind of come up from behind him, and he knew that he was there, but he didn't know he had a hit on him. And he got shot twice in the back of the head with a 22. Well, it showed it on the video there afterwards that they had taken pictures of where he'd been shot in the back of the head with a 22. And as far as shot placement goes, you can't get really better shot placement than in the head. But what happened was he survived. Point blank range, 2 shots in the back of the head of the 22. He ended up getting into a fight. He ended up realizing that he was in trouble. He realized what was going down. So he ended up being one that testified against some of the other mob members in the witness protection program. It's a pretty interesting story. You can go back and watch it and look at it. But the point I was trying to make from all this is, if people say, well, shot placement's all that matters, well, there's 2 shots in the head that he survived and was able to fight and escape. And I do understand that a 22 can be lethal. Don't misunderstand me. But to think, and that's the big push we hear now, well, as long as it's proper shot placement. Again, we understand a miss is a miss. But this is what I'm telling you is, had that not been a 22, had that been a 357 Magnum, the story would have went a whole lot different. So what I'm saying is, it's not just accuracy, it's not just caliber. I think it's a little bit of both. And I've heard people say, and I'm not knocking the 45. I love the 1911. That I absolutely am a huge fan of the 1911. But I don't ever carry the 1911 simply because of the size. And we all know that guy or guys that says, I don't carry nothing but a 45. And then you say, then you find out they're a gun guy, and you love a 1911. You say, I love, let me, well, I don't have it with me. Well, you carrying only a 45, isn't going to help you if you don't have it with you. So I guess basically this shooter's chat is just might just say me ramble. There's some thoughts I had on my mind. But what I'm saying is, don't let anybody tell you it's all about caliber, because if it's a caliber you're not going to carry, it's useless. And don't let anybody say, well, as long as you don't want to be shot with it, it makes it a good defense weapon. Because like I said, I don't want to be shot with a BB gun, but is that going to be enough for home defense? Is that going to be enough for personal protection? That's up to you. But I'll tell you what, the gun you have with you is far better than the gun you leave at the house. Keep that in mind too. So what I'm saying is, whether you're new to consistent carry or home defense, think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Is it just because it's what I've always done? Or is it because you can say, I can get to it quick, I can shoot it accurately, I can shoot it quickly, and I can trust my life with this? Or just because that's just what I've got and that's what I'm going to use? Because there's another lady does videos, she's called Armed and Feminine, and she says, it's your life protected. And that's absolutely right. And people say, well, I don't really care what happens to me, as long as, but there's people around you that cares what happens to you. There's people that's going to have Christmas without you or Thanksgiving without you. If you're in a bad situation, they can't get out. And it's not only your life, it may be your families or your kids. And like I said, we don't own a store. We're not trying to make money off of you. We're just trying to tell you just to weigh out everything, and you make your decisions of what you want to carry and what you're going to use based on what's best for you. And then what's best for you may not be what's best for somebody else. But you make sure you go to the range, you learn to draw, you learn to shoot, you learn to, what's best, what's the pros and cons of this caliber versus this caliber, your frame, your size, your activities, where you're going to be, and you make those choices. Gather up all the information you can. But then when you feel like you've made a good, sound decision, always want advice, because you may learn something. You may say, well, I like that holster better. You know what? I like that new gun that came out. Or whatever. I think I can shoot that better. I'm having trouble with this one. It's always good to learn. But once you feel like you've learned and you've weighed out all the facts and you've tried your best to discern and come up with a good, solid system that works well for you, then don't let anybody tell you you've made the wrong decision, because that's going to happen regardless. Like I said, whether you pick a revolver, a SIG, 357 Magnum, it doesn't matter what caliber you pick or gun you pick. There's going to be people that says, oh, you've done it wrong. That's why you've got to, and I don't mean to keep quoting the same thing, but Sun Tzu, the Art of War, said, if you know yourself and know your enemy, you not fear the result of 100 battles. You need to know yourself. Why do you do what you do? Why do you carry what you carry? And I want you to be safe. I want your family to be safe. Like I said, we've met some wonderful people just through this little small channel, and we appreciate those other channels. We watch you. We love you guys. We appreciate what you're doing. We learn from you. And this is our hobby, because I'm sure after I get done recording, I've already read my Bible for the night, so I'm going to get on there, and I'm probably going to be watching YouTube videos. I like to watch YouTube videos. I like to get on the chats, and I make comments, and I learn, and hopefully we'll glean from each other. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch. It really does. I appreciate you stopping by. We love company. We love guns. We love coffee. So again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to stop by. Love it when you comment. Please leave comments. Just keep it family friendly. May God bless you. The Kentucky Patriot, signing off.